Hi, my name is Vincent. At my sister's wedding, they placed me alone near the exit. They served me leftovers while everyone else sipped champagne and tasted caviar. Then she leaned in close, smiling like it was all a joke, and said, "You should feel honored." But it wasn't just about the food. It was about years of silence, the exhibitions they quietly ruined, the photos they took credit for, the affection they pretended belonged to me until I stopped being useful. They wrapped me in shame for decades. So what happens when the one they forgot finally brings the truth into the room? I read the message once, then again, then a third time. "Can you shoot my wedding? Of course, for free. Your family." It was from Jessa, dropped casually into our nearly empty text thread like she was asking me to grab groceries. I stared at it, my thumb hovering over the screen, but no words came. It wasn't just the request. It was everything behind it, that familiar pull of entitlement, being remembered only when I could serve a purpose in someone else's story. I didn't answer. 2 days later, my phone rang. "Mom." I should have ignored it. I didn't. I picked up and said nothing. "Vincent," she began, her voice sweet but strained. "I know you saw Jess's message. This is important, to her, to all of us. You do understand what family means, right?" I stayed quiet. "After everything we've done for you, this is the least you can do. We're not asking for much. Just show up. Be supportive, like a sister should be." The line went dead before I could respond. Or maybe she never expected me to. I showed up anyway. Supportive. The word tasted bitter. I arrived early, alone as always. No date, no one beside me. Just a simple navy dress and the quiet armor I had learned to carry around them. The St. Augustine Church looked like something out of a magazine. White roses everywhere, gold fabric draped across the walls, petals lining the aisle. Flawless. Almost too flawless. Like it belonged to people who had never known what it felt like to be overlooked. At the check-in table, a woman with a headset scanned the list. Vincent Ward. She paused, confused, then forced a small smile. "Oh, right, table 17. She gestured toward the far corner near the doors. It wasn't even a proper table, just a small setup with one chair. No card, no name. I smiled thinly, thanked her, and walked over. I could have asked why. I could have made it uncomfortable, but that was never my role here. I sat, crossed my legs, and tried to steady my breathing. Across the room, everything sparkled. Designer dresses, clinking glasses, rehearsed laughter. Cameras flashing, people embracing like they belonged to each other. No one looked my way. A server passed by carrying champagne. He didn't stop. It felt like being inside a painting where someone forgot to include you. My mind drifted. Jessa's 25th birthday. I had flown in from Chicago, leaving work unfinished, losing a client just to be there. I brought her a rare print signed by a photographer she admired. She didn't even open it. Her boyfriend handed her a Cartier bracelet. And just like that, I disappeared from the room. Why did I come today? Habit. Guilt. Maybe a small, stubborn hope that something might be different. It wasn't. Jessa walked past in her robe, flawless hair, perfect makeup. She saw me. I know she did, but she didn't stop. My phone buzzed. A client confirming approval for a magazine cover featuring my latest work, a career milestone. I locked the screen without replying. My name wasn't even on the seating chart. Not forgotten. Excluded. When the food began to circulate, the message became impossible to ignore. Trays moved across the room like choreography. Elegant plates, rich aromas, guests murmuring in appreciation. At my table, silence. A waiter approached, avoiding eye contact. He placed a plate in front of me. Cold, uneven, half a roll in wilted greens. No dressing, no fork. I stared at it. Nearby, someone glanced over, then turned away quickly, laughter rising just a little louder. Someone whispered. I didn't hear the words, but I felt them. This wasn't a mistake. This was deliberate. For years, I told myself they didn't mean to hurt me, that they just didn't notice. But this was planned. They didn't want me included. They wanted me grateful for being tolerated. A shadow fell over the table. "Hope everything's all right here," Jessa said, her voice light and polished. She stood there in white, perfect, untouchable. "We kept it simple for you," she added softly. "Didn't want to overwhelm you. I know you're used to something more casual." My hand tightened against the table. She leaned in closer, her voice dropping. "Smile for the camera. Wouldn't want to ruin the look." Then she walked away, heels echoing behind her. I pushed the plate aside. The scent of food filled the air, but I felt nothing. No hunger. No desire to pretend anymore. Another memory surfaced. Thanksgiving. I spent hours baking a pie from scratch, drove miles just to make it in time. I handed it to Mom. She barely glanced at it. "Store-bought crust, Vincent, really?" "It's homemade," I said. She turned away, already calling Jessa over, praising her for a photo she had posted online. They celebrated that, not me. My pie sat untouched. Back in the present, someone raised a glass to speak. I didn't hear a word. My fingers brushed the small USB hidden in my bag. Warm. Waiting. I didn't come to cause a scene, but maybe I didn't come to stay quiet either. Then something caught my eye. A phone lit up beside me, Jessa's, left unattended for just a moment. The message glowed. "Can't wait for tonight. Remember you're mine, wedding or not. Tobin." Everything inside me went still. I looked across the room. Jessa stood wrapped in Emery's arms, laughing like everything was perfect. My grip tightened around my bag. She was cheating, not just before, tonight. And suddenly it all made sense. I wasn't just invisible. I was useful, a distraction, a cover. I stood, needing air, stepping into the hallway. The cold wall pressed against my back as another memory surfaced. Berlin, my exhibition, everything falling apart after someone made a call, labeled me unstable, difficult. I knew who it was. I returned to the room, numb, moving through applause and empty words. Back at my isolated table, I sat down again. My phone buzzed. An email. "Congratulations, Vincent. Your portrait series has been selected for our spring cover. Exceptional work." My first cover. The kind of moment families celebrate, the kind of moment they gather for. When it's someone else. I locked my screen without replying. I looked around. Not a single face here would care. Not one person would cheer. Raquel would say it was luck. Dad would say, "Nice hobby." Jessa, she'd probably post a selfie with me. I opened my clutch and stared at the small USB inside it. It was cool against my fingertips. I could feel the line being drawn inside me. Not in anger, not even in grief, but in truth, clean and cold. Mom once told me, "You owe us. We've given you everything." And Jessa, during one of our last real conversations, if you could even call it that, had laughed and said, "Let's be real, Vincent. You're just background. You make the rest of us look good." They thought I was the silence that framed the picture. She wore white. I had the truth, and my truth was finally louder than their silence. Mom cornered me near the restroom. Her lipstick was perfect, her threats even more so. She timed it well. Right before the speeches, when no one was looking. A smile on her face, hand delicately placed on my arm, voice wrapped in sugar. "Vincent, darling, let's not ruin
"The evening," she whispered. I said nothing. She leaned closer, breath scented with expensive perfume and polished control. "If you say or show anything tonight, consider your career done. I made one call before. I'll make 10 this time. Do you understand me?" I didn't flinch, but my pulse was screaming in my ears. She stepped back, smile still glued in place. "You're here as a guest, not a martyr. Keep it classy." Then she turned, heels tapping against the marble like a gavel. Case closed. I stood there, back against the cool tile, trying to steady my breath. My mother didn't scream. She sliced, and I was bleeding beneath the surface. But this wasn't new. 6 years ago, I'd landed my first gallery opportunity in Manhattan, a real one. My name on the wall, my work, raw portraits of working-class women, centered and seen. Then Rochelle called. "Change of plans," she said. "We're doing family portraits that weekend. Grandma will be in town. You know how rare that is." "I've already committed, Mom. The gallery's confirmed." "Oh, please," she cut in. "We are family, Vincent. This is more important than a few pictures on a wall." I canceled the show. She didn't thank me. Grandma didn't even like the photos. The gallery gave my slot to someone else. I didn't get another solo invite for over a year. That was the first time I realized In my family, love was conditional, and sacrifice was never remembered, only expected. Back at table 17, I sat down again. The ballroom lights dimmed slightly as the MC tapped the mic. The crowd hushed. I opened my clutch and stared at the USB inside. It was still there, tucked in like a secret, like a truth too sharp to carry in my hands. Rochelle's words echoed. "You owe us." I closed my fingers around the metal. "No," I whispered. "You owe me." I scanned the room. Jessa was glowing, sipping champagne, her dress shimmering like deceit. Dad laughed too loudly at a joke no one else heard. Rochelle nodded graciously to distant relatives as if none of it was unraveling. A waiter leaned toward me. "Ma'am, are you all right?" "I will be," I said. He moved on. I didn't watch him go. My eyes locked on the stage. This time, I won't bow. I won't beg. I will speak. But first, let me remind you what she stole before she wore that veil. It was 3 weeks ago. I was sorting prints for a client when an email came through from a woman I hadn't heard from in years, a gallery client from LA. We'd worked together on a small campaign back in 2019. "Hey, just curious, wasn't this your shot from the Venice Boardwalk series? It's in Jess's new press kit, no credit line." She attached a screenshot. There it was, my photo, my composition, the golden hour lighting, the color grading only I used, and front and center, Jessa looking over her shoulder in a white dress, laughing into nothing. My art, her brand, no mention of me, no byline, no tag. I stared at the image so long my eyes watered. Then I closed the laptop and walked away. I didn't scream, I didn't call her. I just remembered. 2 years ago, I did confront her, back when I still believed Converse could fix things. "Jessa, you used my work without permission," I said, holding up her latest magazine spread. She didn't blink. "It's just a photo, Vincent. Relax. People care about the model, not the background." The background. That word clung to me like mildew. It followed me into this wedding, into every interaction I had with them. I wasn't their sister. I was a prop, a supporting character in their curated lives. And yet I was the one who had created the image, who framed her face, who saw her through the lens, even when she refused to see me at all. Tonight, I sat quietly at table 17, the USB still inside my clutch, nestled beside a lip balm and folded tissue. The orchestra played something light and classical, perfect for a fairy tale evening. I stood. My hands were steady now. I walked toward the front of the room, toward the AV booth near the corner. The MC was reviewing a printed schedule. I stopped beside him and said simply, "There's one more story the guests need to see before the final speech." He blinked. "I don't think that's on the—" "It is now." He hesitated, his eyes flicking toward the stage manager. "I'm not asking," I said. "Either you cue it or I will." He swallowed hard, then nodded slowly. "Where's the file?" I handed him the USB. As he turned toward the tech crew, I turned back to the room. A sea of faces, all pretending nothing was off kilter, that everything was orchestrated perfectly. They didn't see the wires unraveling beneath the floor. I walked slowly back to my table, sat down, straightened my silverware, even though I wouldn't be eating. Not tonight. Across the ballroom, I saw Mom whisper something to Dad. Jessa was mid-conversation with one of the bridesmaids. She still looked flawless, still perfectly unaware. The lights flickered. The projector screen lowered. People murmured. A few heads turned. A ripple of confusion spread from table to table. A low rustling sound of expectation. I folded my hands in my lap. This is not revenge. It's release. The screen flickered. Then the first frame appeared, and Jessa's face drained of color. Gasp rippled across the ballroom like shattered glass. The image on screen showed Jessa at her engagement party, arm in arm with Emery, both smiling for the crowd. But within seconds, the video shifted. A clip caught her stepping away, glancing at her phone, smirking as her fingers tapped quickly. Then the message appeared, crystal clear. "Tobin, can't wait till tonight. Just remember, you are mine, wedding or not. Time-stamped, dated, undeniable." Jessa's mouth dropped open. Emery sat frozen, then slowly turned his head to look at her. I didn't need to be near them to feel the heat of his realization. He wasn't the groom, he was the shield. The next scene cut to my voice, calm, precise. They dressed me in silence. I returned the favor with clarity. Clips followed, short, stinging. Thanksgiving. Rochelle tossing my homemade pie into the trash, saying, "Next time buy from Whole Foods. At least their crust is consistent." A voicemail from her a year later, telling me, "We'll reschedule your show. Grandma will be in town. You know how fragile she is. Be flexible." She never rescheduled. The gallery gave the slot away. Then a call recording, Dad's voice, measured, businesslike. "She's talented, yes, but volatile. Not someone we'd trust to carry a brand. Her work's emotional, not marketable.
It was his voice. No ambiguity. Just sabotage, dressed in professional detachment. Another cut. Jessa at a launch party, sipping wine on a rooftop, camera rolling.
She's so dramatic. I mean, art's cute and all, but we're the ones with real jobs, real lives, right? Laughter, then silence. The final clip zoomed in on the wedding seating chart table. Table 17, one chair, no name. I stood still, letting the room inhale what I had exhaled. Emery stood slowly, lips parted, but no words. He turned to Jessa and said, barely above a whisper, "Did you ever love?" She reached for his hand, mascara smudged and cracking. "Emery, wait." But he stepped away. Just one step, and then another, and he was gone. The Winston matriarch rose, spine straight and voice like ice. "You tried to attach us to this disgrace." She didn't wait for an answer. Neither did her husband. Ralph fumbled to stand, stammering something about misrepresentation. Walter hadn't moved. He stared at the tablecloth like it had betrayed him too. I walked to the microphone without invitation. No shaking, no smile. "You called me dramatic, difficult, disposable. But really, I was just inconvenient." My voice rang clear to everyone who watched and said nothing. "Congratulations. You no longer get to pretend. You saw it. You heard it. And you'll carry it with you." I scanned the crowd, their eyes wide, many lowering their heads. Not out of shame, but because they knew I had told the truth. And truth is heavy. You dressed me in silence tonight. Tonight I wear my own voice. I stepped back a beat. Silence held. Then one clap. Two. Then a wave. It wasn't thunderous. It wasn't a standing ovation. It was real. I turned, ready to leave the stage, when I heard Jessa's voice behind me. Small, shaky, trying to hold on to whatever illusion she could salvage. "What did you do to me?" I didn't turn around. I just stopped letting you do it to me. But the thing about people like my sister, they don't fall quietly. They claw. They scream. Sometimes in silence, sometimes in smiles, but always in chaos. Emery stood, his expression flat. Not angry, not confused. Just done. He slipped the silver ring off his finger with a quiet finality and placed it on the edge of the table. "You don't even understand love," he said. "Just performance." No one breathed. Jess's hand trembled as she reached for him. But he had already turned. No fanfare, no accusations. Just a man walking away from a staged life. The Winston matriarch rose next, her pearls stiff against her neck. "This family," she announced, "has no honor. You nearly tied us to fraud. We will not be associated with this." Her husband gave a single nod before they followed Emery out of the room. Quiet, clean exits. Surgical. Devastating. Guests murmured, some in pity, some in satisfaction. A few picked up their jackets and slowly made their way toward the doors. No one was dancing anymore. Jessa collapsed into a chair. Her dress, once a symbol of everything she'd curated, now looked heavy, wrinkled, and wrong. Her makeup smeared in streaks across her cheekbones. She didn't speak. She just sat. My phone buzzed on the table. A text from one of Jessa's former brand reps. "Hi, Jessa. Due to unexpected PR circumstances, we'll be discontinuing the skincare campaign, effective immediately." Another came seconds later. "We need to pause all pending content. Too much exposure. Not the good kind." And then her publicist, loud and blunt on speakerphone. "Jessa, you're radioactive. Sponsors are pulling out fast. You need to go offline, like now." I didn't gloat. I didn't even smile. It wasn't victory. It was gravity. That's what truth does when it finally lands. I stepped into a back hallway, needing air. Instead, I got Rel. She blocked my way, clutching a drink in one hand, mascara flaking beneath her eyes, rage sharpened by embarrassment. "You humiliated us," she hissed. "You humiliated your sister. Is this what you wanted? To destroy your family?" "No," I said. "I just wanted to be treated like your daughter." Her eyes narrowed. "You always make everything about you." Walter's voice broke through from behind her. "Enough." He stepped forward, his tone low but unshakable. "This family broke a long time ago, Rel." Vincent just stopped pretending. She stared at him, stunned, like she didn't recognize the man standing beside her. Neither did I.
And yet, somehow in that moment, he looked more human than he ever had. Rel didn't speak again. She turned, tossed the drink onto a nearby cable, and walked out. Guests were now openly leaving. A few offered me nods, some respectful, some just awkward. The ones who stayed were quiet. The ones who left would carry the story in whispers. I returned to table 17. The USB was still there, tucked under a napkin. Empty now, all of its secrets spilled, and none left to keep. I held it in my hand and closed my fingers around it. My body felt light, not triumphant, not even proud, just unchained. I looked around the room. My sister slouched in a chair like the air had left her lungs. Rel was gone. Walter stood by a window, arms folded, watching a world he'd built crack and sink. I didn't win, but I ended the game. The next morning, my mother called me, not to apologize, to beg. Her voice was scratchy, thin, trying to sound steady. "I think we all said things we didn't mean," she offered. I didn't respond. "Can we meet? Just talk, please, Vincent." I closed my eyes and breathed in slowly. I recognized the tone, not remorse, desperation. She didn't want to make peace. She wanted to contain the fallout. "I've already said what I needed to," I told her, publicly.
There was a pause, then quieter. We've reflected, Walter and I. We want to move forward as a family. Your version of family isn't something I need anymore. Click. Later that week, I received a letter in the mail, handwritten, unusually neat for my father. It didn't say, "I'm sorry." It said, "We hope someday you'll understand what we tried to do." That was the last time I heard from either of them. And honestly, that was enough. I didn't need a reconciliation. I needed a release, and I had found it. But not everything that ends stays gone. It was a rainy Tuesday in March when Jessa showed up at the front door of my studio. No makeup, hair pulled back, jacket soaked. "I'm not here to explain," she said. "Good," I replied. I need work." I stood in the doorway for a long time. She looked smaller than I remembered her. Her heels were gone. Her voice no longer held knives. "You know," I said, "you could have called first. I didn't think you'd pick up." She wasn't wrong. I let her in. The studio smelled like paint and varnish. The floors were clean. My assistant Caleb was editing prints in the back room. Jessa stood awkwardly in the front gallery space, surrounded by portraits of strangers who had trusted me more in minutes than she had in 30 years. "I don't need you to forgive me," she said. I need to start over." I believed her. Not fully, but enough to take a risk. Pause. Long pause. I studied her face. Not for beauty this time, for intent. "You can show up early," I said. "You'll clean everything. You'll be invisible for a while." She nodded. "And you'll earn your way into the frame this time." That night, I stood on the rooftop of the studio. The city was soft below me, breathing in shadows and streetlights. Caleb joined me, mug of tea in his hand. So he asked, "What's your next project?" I thought for a moment. The wind tugged at my sleeves. "Portraits of rebirth," I said, "but not from ashes, from clarity." And yet, clarity doesn't mean the wound is gone. I stood alone on the rooftop of my studio, the Brooklyn skyline soft in the distance, city lights flickering like quiet thoughts. The air was cool, but not cold. Spring was somewhere between the buildings, still deciding if it wanted to stay. In my hand was an old photo I hadn't looked at in years. Me and Jessa. I was maybe 10, she 12. She stood front and center in a white ballet costume, hair in curls, perfect posture. I was in the background, slightly out of focus, cropped at the shoulder, smiling like I wasn't supposed to be there. I traced the edge of the picture with my thumb. They never saw me clearly, but I do. Inside the studio, Caleb was muttering about a crooked frame. I could hear the sound of tape being pulled.
The soft thump of a print being adjusted. "Hey, Vincent," he called. "This one's a little off, but I think it's honest." I laughed. "Good, leave it that way." Guests were starting to arrive for the opening night of my new series, Reborn in Focus. Some were collectors, some were friends. All were chosen. Liana brought over a tray of sparkling water and tiny lemon cookies. Someone cued music, something soft and simple. And in the middle of the room, someone raised a glass to the family you make, they said. Everyone echoed it. Glasses clinked. I stood in the center of the photo this time, not because I asked to be there, but because they pulled me in. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught a glimpse of Jessa. She was quietly sweeping near the back corner where guests wouldn't notice her. She didn't look up, she didn't expect applause, and she didn't run. Later, when the last guest had left and silence returned like an old friend, I checked my phone. One new voicemail. Vincent, it's your mother. I know you don't owe us anything, but I hope someday you'll forgive me. Not for me, for you. I didn't delete it, but I didn't call back either. Some things aren't meant to be repaired, just remembered, then released. I walked to my private workspace in the back. The walls smelled faintly of varnish and steel. My favorite chair creaked as I sat down. Across from me, centered perfectly on the wall, was a new photograph. Black and white. My own face, sharp, bold, unapologetic. Underneath, handwritten in ink, truth, framed by my own hand. No more asking to be seen. No more waiting for a seat. I built the table. Maybe you saw a piece of yourself in me. Maybe you've spent years shrinking at the edge of someone else's story, waiting for a seat, waiting to be enough, waiting to be seen. But here's what I've learned, and I say this as someone who's walked through silence, shame, and survival. You don't need their permission to matter. You don't need to keep bleeding just because they call it family, and you sure as hell don't need to sit at a table where your name is missing. You can build your own. I did. Not out of revenge, but out of truth, out of clarity, out of the quiet kind of love we offer ourselves when no one else will. So now I'm asking you, what truth have you been swallowing for too long? What story is still stuck in your throat, waiting to be told? If this story stirred something in you, let me know in the comments. Drop a 1 if this hit home, or tell me where you're watching from. I'd love to know. And hey, if this wasn't your thing, I respect that too. Tell me what didn't land for you and where you're tuning in from. This space is for real people, real stories. So if you believe in truth, growth, and the kind of endings that don't always come with closure, but come with freedom, then subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching. Take care of your story.